Good morning. So one of the things we're going to talk about, or the one thing we're going to talk about today, is building out a mortgage amortization table from scratch. We're going to build this. It's basically a model representation. We're going to build this in a way that allows us to play with the model. And then you can build one of these, and if you're buying a house, you can just kind of play with it and do whatever you want. Okay. We're going to start with the price of the house. And the down payment percentage, right? As we build this out, one of the things I like to do is to plug in fake numbers. Let's make it 150,000. Let's make it 200,000. Things are changing, right? 200, 1, 2, 3, right? And that's a dollar sign. A pretty spreadsheet is a strong spreadsheet. Our down payment percentage is going to be 20%, where that'll shift. Most people don't put down 20%. But I want to take the time to stop here and look at these guys and say, hey, look, these are inputs, right? And if you come over here to styles, you'll have this input style. And this tells every other spreadsheet nerd out there that these are input styles, right? You can also calculate here the loan amount, right? So actually, before we do that, let's call this the down payment. And instead of the percentage sign, let's call it a dollar sign. So that's going to be equal to the price of the house times the percent down payment, right? So that's $40,000. That makes sense. This is a calculation. And so if you go back to your data styles, you'll have the calculation, and we're going to want to include the loan balance, the original loan. I'm going to call it the loan amount, the original loan balance. That's going to change over time, and that guy's going to be equal to obviously the price of the house minus the down payment, right? Again, this is a calculation. And then we're going to make it a calculation. When you turn to your friends, your colleagues, your clients, your spouse, whatever, you can turn around and say, hey, look, only play with the orange ones. Everything else is going to dance around. So you want to see what it costs for a $250,000 house? Then you just plug it in. You want to go 150, 1, 2, 3, you plug it in. All the calculations and all the other stuff is going to shift. Please don't mess with that stuff. Mess only with the stuff in orange, right? Let's go back to 200,000 just for the sake of having it there. The other things I need in order to construct the amortization table include the mortgage rate, which is a percentage, right? Let's go ahead and put a 5% rate here just to, 5% rate just to have something. And I'm also going to need the years. And we're going to put in 30, right? Both of these are inputs. And then you can, do whatever. Some people might want to keep this, like if your OCD is rocking hard, you can put this down here at the bottom, right? And delete those 2 rows. That's fine. Your down payment amount and your dollar sign, that's fine. You can do it whichever way you want. It doesn't matter as long as we point to the same place, right? All right. The next thing we want to do is we want to calculate the actual loan payment, right? And we're going to do this, we're going to mortgage this out on, we're going to amort this out on a monthly basis. So let's do a PMT equals PMT open parentheses. You're going to end up with these other factors that you can throw in to calculate your payment, beginning with the rate, which is 5 years. But remember that this is an annual rate, and we are going to amortize, we're going to compound this loan on a monthly basis. So I'm going to take my rate and divide it by 12. I'm going to chop it into all the different months. And the next thing I do is NPER. You can see it right here, NPER, number of periods is 30 years. Again, we're doing this monthly. So I've got to multiply that one by 12, right, comma. Present value is the loan amount, not the price of the house. Remember, we're paying a down payment. There's a loan amount that goes with it, comma, future value. The computer's going to assume that the future value is going to be 0. You can type it in. And finally, the type means whether you're compounding at the beginning of the month or at the end of the month. The This calculation assumes that we're compounding at the end of the month, so I'm not going to change it. There it is, end of the period, beginning of the period. 0 or nothing is the end of the period. So you can put another 0 here, but just ignore it altogether because it's average. It's what happens on average, usually. And then I have a calculation for this loan payment. You'll notice that this loan payment is negative. That makes perfect sense. If you're a traditional academic finance person, yeah, it makes sense because I'm over here, it's positive because I'm receiving the money, and over here it's negative because I'm paying the money. That's great, but it's going to mess up our amortization table in a minute. So one little cheat that we can do is you can put a little negative sign out here in front of the payment, and it'll make it pretty, right? It'll make it nice. Okay, great. But that's not our full loan payment or full monthly payment, which also includes a bunch of other stuff like property taxes. And it includes maybe HOA for you, or maybe it includes property insurance. Let's call that property insurance, which is different from PMI or mortgage insurance, right? Mortgage insurance. What else can we put on here? I don't know. Sometimes there's other stuff, so let's put other. And then I have my total monthly payments, right? Let's put in some dollars in here just to, I'm in Texas, so that's going to be a little expensive, 400. HOA, we don't like HOAs, so we're going to put 0. Actually, that's not true. A lot of you are going to have HOAs, so let's put $100. Property insurance down here is fairly cheap. Let's put 125. PMI sucks, and it's going to be 120. Other is going to be 0. And this guy is finally going to be a summation of all of my different payments. Close parentheses, enter. Oof. These are all dollar signs, so I'm going to highlight the dollar sign. Again, a pretty spreadsheet is a strong spreadsheet. This guy is, the first one is a calculation. I have calculated it from these inputs on the left-hand side. The rest of these guys are inputs, so you have to go in and modify those. And finally, this guy at the bottom is also a calculation, right? And I think that's all we need to get started. Let's begin our table. Monthly, beginning balance. I can never be sure that I spell beginning right. Is it 2 N's or 1 N? I don't remember. Our interest, our monthly payment. Let's do an extra payment. We'll put that in a second. And then my ending balance for the month, right? Again, a pretty spreadsheet is a strong spreadsheet, so I'm going to take the time to center, and I like to wrap the text because it makes it nice and pretty and it saves some space with the big fancy ones. I'm going to put a little black line here at the bottom. It shouldn't say monthly, it should say month. To just kind of, again, formalize month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, and so on, right? I'm going to go down here and I'm going to create 360 months. 350, 360. You know what? I'm going to do 400, and I'll show you why we're going to do 400 in a minute. It's rare that you're going to have a loan over 30 years unless you live in Los Angeles. Then, you know, they're doing 40-year notes over there. It's pretty insane. Maybe San Francisco's doing the same. Just ridiculous. Okay. And now I've got all my months. All right, let's go back up and take a look at the big picture. Where do we begin? We begin with the loan amount, not with the price of the house. And this is going to be a pointer that says equals A8, enter. And this is a linked cell. The difference between a linked cell and a calculation is obviously that they're calculated. So whatever's in one is going to show up in the other, and there's no calculation thereof. This formatting reminds me not to touch that one, that it is going to be different from the other stuff we're about to do. Let's calculate the interest for the month. That's going to be this beginning balance. Do not grab the one from the top. Grab the one from the particular month. And for those of you who are already thinking ahead, you know that we're going to do the same thing next month and the month after that and so on. And multiply it by the interest rate or the mortgage rate. Two things. Number one, I'm going to hit F4, which is going to lock up that particular cell, because you know that I'm going to copy paste it down to the next ones, and I don't want this guy to move, right? Number two, We're doing this on a monthly basis, and this is an annual mortgage rate, so I have to divide that guy by 12 in order to get the appropriate interest. $600. Ooh, that looks bad. My monthly payment is going to be equal to my calculated loan payment, not my total monthly payment, right? I only care about the loan. Property taxes are going to go to the county. HOA goes to the HOA. Property insurance goes to the insurance company. Mortgage insurance goes to the other mortgage insurance company. None of this stuff in the middle here in the second column pays down your note. Only the loan payment at the very top, right? To that end, I'm going to hit F4 and I'm going to lock up that cell so it's exactly the same all the way down. Extra payment, for now that's going to be 0, but why not include it, right? Let's create another one up here, extra payment, and for now I'm going to put 0. And this guy, like my regular payment, is going to be locked up there at C10. Should be 0. It is 0. My ending balance then is going to be all the calculation across for that particular month. The beginning balance of the month plus, right? It's going to go up by the total amount of interest that I pay. Remember, this gets compounded monthly. It gets compounded either on the last day of the month or on the first day of the next month, right? And from it, I'm going to subtract my payment, which is going to be my regular monthly payment plus my extra payment. Notice that I did this in parentheses because I want the monthly payments to get combined before I subtract them. I don't want to subtract one and then subtract the other. You don't want to get messy. You want to look at these as entities. And you can figure out the arithmetic on this if it makes you feel better. That's fine. We're not going to mess with it too much, right? I'm going to spread this out just a little bit to make it nice and clean. Yeah, to make it nice and clean. These are all dollar signs. Everything looks pretty good to me, right? Let's talk about the second month. Where do we begin the second month? Well, if 159,807 is the ending balance at the end of the first month, then the beginning balance at the beginning of the second month is going to be the exact same thing, right? Now you can come back here and turn this into a linked cell if you want, but at this point it's getting a little tedious. The great thing about the way that we constructed these four, not the beginning balance, these four, is that I can copy and paste them on the next line and they should be good, right? This calculates the beginning balance of month number 2 times this locked up mortgage rate up here at the top. Yeah, that makes sense. The monthly payment locked up. It's going to be this forever. That's the way it is. Extra payment. Here, you can pay extra, but you're assuming that your extra payment is going to be the same every month. What I suggest is once you do all of this and you're like, well, I'm going to throw in an extra $100 at Christmas, then go down here to month 12 and put, $100 here, right? You can play with it as you want. That's up to you. Ending balance should be the one that scrolls down on a month-to-month basis. So all of these variables should be on this line number 2. That looks good to me. Now, here's my favorite Excel trick. Down here in the bottom right-hand corner of your highlighted area is this little green box, right? Not this quick analysis thing, but that little green box right there. That little green box is my shortcut key to highlight down. So I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to click and drag. Oh, and if I click and drag down, it keeps the whole highlighted cell together. Isn't that nice? You can just do them all. Or if you want to do them all, double click it. 1, 2. Boom. It's going to go down all the way down to the 400 mark. 400. Bam. That's fantastic. But what is this? Why is this negative? We shouldn't have negatives. We do have negatives. And we're going to play with that in just a second. But first, let's get pretty. Let's do our beginning month and balance. And let's highlight that all the way down to 400. Control Shift down will get you there. Let me do it again. Control Shift right, Control Shift up gets me to the entire thing. And I'm going to insert a bar graph. Ooh, isn't that pretty? Now, when you do the bar graph, any graph in Excel, it's going to insert whatever row you have present, right? So here I've inserted it at row 3. You might find yourself inserting this particular graphic down at row 400, and then it's just a pain. So just keep an eye on that. Right? I like to bring this guy up here to the top. You can make it pretty later. and kind of play with it. But what bothers me about this guy is this little, actually, you know, I'm not gonna mess with that. This little patch of negative down here at the bottom. That bothers me. I don't like it. Let me scoot this over to the right a little bit, make it nicer, make it a little fatter. Yeah, that's nicer. You can play with this and make it pretty later. These are supposed to be dollar signs. You get it. So we have to do a couple of things to make that negative go away. And if we go down to 360, first of all, we should see that there's zeros at 360. Here's 360. My ending balance is 0. Sometimes, just kind of an FYI, sometimes this isn't actually 0. Sometimes you'll have, oh, there it is, fractions of a penny way down here at the bottom. That's going to be problematic for us momentarily because we're not at 0, right? We're at some millionth, trillionth of a penny, and that's just really annoying. So let's go back. Let's go back to normal. Let's go back to 2 decimals. And let's take this back to where, you know, some degree of normalcy. And so we're going to have to fight that here in a minute. But more importantly, we're at 360. That's 30 years times 12 months. And we're at 0 for all practical purposes. So we're good there. That's fantastic. Let's go back and let's create a more, and you would call this an intermediate kind of step. I mean, if you want to stop here and you're good because you see the number, hey, that's perfectly fine. But let's go on and do some intermediate type of stuff here. Let's start at the monthly payment, and we're going to create an if statement, right? Equals if open parentheses. And what we want is to do, we want to minimize we don't want to make any additional payments after our balance has gone to 0. So when our beginning balance is equal to 0, wait, that's not right. When our beginning balance is greater than 0, go ahead and make the payment. Whoops. Let me try that again. Let me zoom in a little more so you can see it. If my beginning balance, B1, is greater than 0, comma, go ahead and make the payment. Why am I doing this? All right, let me show you another trick. I'm going to hit the F2 button, and that's going to put me in like this editing mode inside of a cell. So if you ever want to edit a cell and you're having problems, hit the F2 button. If, open parentheses, the beginning balance is greater than 0, this should work now. It did it again, F2. Delete all of that. F2, there you go, F2 works. Else, do 0, close parentheses. What does this mean? If my beginning balance is greater than 0, then I still owe money. Go ahead and make a payment. Else make this 0. Now, we could do this deal where you could, you know, your fractions of a dollar or you're less than the actual monthly payment or whatever. That's fine. We'll call that an advanced trick for now. But we also know, because we just looked at it, that there are these hundredth of a penny fractional whatever, and that's a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat this a little bit, and I'm going to make it 1 penny, 0.01, right? If I am greater than 0.01, and you can make it 0.01 if you want to, right? It doesn't really matter. It's just those fractional pennies that we don't want them to mess up our calculation here in a minute. So put some, you know, 100th of a penny. You could actually put greater than or equal to 0.01. That's probably better. Greater than or equal to 0.01, right? And again, I have my little green box down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Double click it. Oh, something happened to my graph. What happened to my graph? Oh, there we go. And it stops at 0, right? How cool is that? Oh, it's beautiful. Let's go take a look. Let's go take a look. Do I need to change all the other stuff? I don't know that I'm going to have to change anything else. Ah, fantastic. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. You can make that if statement work here for extra payments. You can make that if statement work here for, matter of fact, I think we want to work here for the payment. So let's go do it for extra payments, just like we did for our regular payment. If greater than or equal to a penny, make the payment, else 0. So let's do that again here. If, open parentheses, the beginning balance is greater than or equal to 0.01, then C10, F2, right arrow, else do 0, close parentheses, enter, and well, thank you, scroll it down. If you didn't get a good look at it, there it is. If the balance at the beginning of the month is greater than or equal to a penny, greater than or equal to a penny, then go ahead and make a payment. Else, make the payment 0. Things are going to get weird when they're not, when they're not perfect down there at the bottom, but for the most part, this works, right? Let's zoom out. Now we can take a look at stuff. What happens if I make an extra payment of $100? Oh, fantastic. I pay it so much earlier. Excellent, excellent, excellent. There are a couple of things I might want to know. So that's going to stop our construction of our amort table. Things look pretty good. But if you want to do a little bit more, you can. I encourage you to play with this as much as you want. I may want to know what my total payments are. Payments, right? So I'm going to get the sum of all of my payments, right? That seems to work. Excellent. So let's go. That seems to work. So let's go grab my payment from the first month, my extra payment from the first month, and scroll all the way down to the bottom, including all of these zeros, right? Because you might want to do more down to the 400th. I hit enter, and my total payments are $309,000. That seems like a lot. This is a calculation, right? So I don't want my client or my boss or my peers to mess with it. That's fine. I may want to calculate total interest, right? Which is going to be the sum of all of my interest calculations. So I'm going to go here to C13 and grab everything that's in that column, enter. That's a control shift down. Same thing, this is a calculation. I don't want anybody to mess with that. If you think that that's a little wonky or something doesn't work, then you can test it, right? Total payments minus the total loan amount is $149,209.25. Total interest, fantastic, that looks good. What else could we do here? I think that's pretty good. We could actually calculate the ending month, right? The first month, that's more of an advanced deal. I think this is good right where it stands. You can come back here and I don't need month. Make month go away. Delete. You can play with this and make this prettier if you want. At the very least, you know where you're at. You can change the axis. You can calculate this axis to divide it by 12 so that you can have the year instead of the month. There's a bunch of different things you can do here to make this work and work well. But for the most part, you can now hand this over to your spouse or to your client or to your boss or whatever and say, hey, what happens if? Well, what happens if we make this a $180,000 house instead of a $200,000 house? Everything should shift, right? The one I would encourage you to consider is switching a 15-year note. Look, take a look at this guy. Control C, and I'm going to do the formula. This is the 30-year, right? This is a 30-year. I'll turn those back into dollars, right? And what happens on a 15-year? So if I turn this to 15, I mean, woof, that's fantastic. What's the difference? It's about an additional $300 a month that you're going to have to make in a total mortgage payment here. The other thing you might want to consider doing is once you get 2 or 3 of these models that you like, you can plug this in, you know, plug this in, copy this whole thing and go Control C, go over to a new sheet, make this 30-year, right? And when you paste it with a right click and hit 1, 2, 3 so that you only get the values. Well, can I paste it with the values and the formula? And the formatting? There you go, something like that. Go back to sheet 1 to make it 15 years, right? Copy the same thing again, Control C, do a 15-year, and you get the point. You get to do all of your formatting. Copy the values, copy the formatting. There you go. And now you can print those off, or you can do whatever it is that you want with them to make them look nice and pretty, or you can stack them, or whatever you want. Either way, what you have here is a nice, beautiful amortization table and a very simple chart where you can start to manipulate your hypothetical house purchase. I hope you enjoyed it. Good luck. Feel free to click and subscribe. We'll put some more out as we go along.